And it's hard with the chairs the way they are in here. That's not much room to switch, so I'm not going to make you do that right now. When you move your consciousness into the other person, you will begin to pick up an energy signature of who that person is, their energy identity. That tells you more about who they are than what you see with your eyes before you. You can learn to really, really tune up your inner radar by doing these kind of exercises more. Do them with animals, do them with plants, do them with rocks, do them with crystals, do them with your knee. The more you get used to putting your consciousness in another focus to experience the reality that's happening from that focus, the more you learn about whatever it is you're trying to learn about, and the more flexible your own receptors become. So it's worth it. Now, you can try reversing what we did as far as the person who was the transmitter. Now, become the receiver and simply distract yourself with I trust, I allow, I trust, I allow. And the person that was the receiver, for a moment, create your little bubble of white energy and see yourself sitting in there, and move it down from the pineal to the heart chakra and out on a horizontal line to the other person's heart chakra. And if you want the short version of it, which you can use once you've built in your own mechanism, the energy circuit. See, when you visualize yourself at the pineal and then in the little white dot going down to the heart and then going out on a vertical line, you're setting a pattern. And if you do that for a while, then you can use the shorthand version, where you simply imagine yourself in that little ball and pop it into somebody's heart chakra. But you never do that without asking permission. And if you're going to do energy work with somebody, unless it's a crisis situation and your own higher guidance has asked you to intervene, you don't do energy work on people without getting approval. And sometimes you must go to their soul to get that approval. Try to feel. The one who was the receiver now try to transmit, and the one who is receiving now that transmitted before, try to feel the difference from what you did when you were moving your energy forward to now you're feeling energy moving forward towards you. Different feeling. These are all the subtleties you need to become aware of observing as you get more talented in using the higher technologies of energy, scalar mechanics. And for a moment, before touching, experience as much as you can the reality of each other as energy. And send a little telepathic from the mind but also from the heart. I salute the God in you. I salute the consciousness of the one that you are created of and that I am created of. Because before we pull out of the pair, of the doing this in pairs, I'd like to get you into a space of rapport between your energy selves, where you can do a visualization, a receiver and transmitter one, again, doesn't matter who's who. But we're going to create something called the inner space, or the inner sanctuary. You're still sitting together. And now pull back your energy into your own fields. Transmitter, stop transmitting and bring yourself back home. And I want both people in the pair to simply relax a little and breathe. Nobody's trying to investigate you now. And nobody's feeling you. You're just you. Now I want you, each of you, to visualize for a moment a very, very sacred space that you feel peaceful and sheltered and protected. It may be a space that exists on the planet. It may be a space that you've seen in a dream. Or it may be a space that you simply imagine. You like beaches? I'll put a beach there. You like trees? I'll put some trees. Create a visualization, each one of you personally, of the most sacred, wonderful, beautiful, perfect space that you could be alone in to experience the wonder of you. A place where there's no distraction, No violation. If you're out in nature, there's no bugs there. Yeah. The perfect, idyllic paradise. Whatever version of that would be yours. And it will be different for everyone. But all the little distracting things, that if you were, say, out by a beautiful stream here, if you were out by a beautiful stream in 3D, you would be worrying about what's going to bite you if you're sitting on the grass, because there are things that do that here. This is your little sanctuary. You're a creator, created in the image of Creator. So you're going to create a space that is most sacred and holy just how you want it. This is all yours. And some people, when confronted with, wow, I can have it exactly as I want it. Nobody else has, I don't have to bargain this. I don't have to say, well, or figure out how much it costs. Or this is, I can just create this space as a perfect expression of me. Will find themselves drawing a blank where I don't know what to create. If you get to a point where you don't see anything and you can't find a space that looks like anything, that's okay too, because it doesn't have to be a space that has rivers and streams or parks or beautiful buildings. It can be beautiful buildings or ancient rooms, but it can also be simply a color, a field of color, or a sphere of colored energy, or a texture of energy that doesn't even have any sound or light attached. That's the hardest to find. Usually you can start finding those energy spaces by using visualizations to get you there. So think of a thing or one place that is most special to you, makes you feel good, and put that as the center of this sanctuary you're creating. And just let the space be from there. If it becomes very cluttered and big and has lots of stuff to it, great. If it's just a sphere of white energy with that one sacred object that makes you feel good in it, that's okay too. What we're going to do is, first of all, get used to being in this space. Wherever you are, you can take this space with you. You are a part of this earth. You exist on this earth. But the way our societies are set up, it's as if some of us aren't welcome here. Like we don't belong here. You don't have money, you don't have this and that, you don't have a house, you don't have a place to put your bottom. And that's not universal law. Universal law means we're all here implies we all belong here. We should be treating each other well. It doesn't matter if you were a homeless person or if you own 20 mansions. Every person here belongs. They fit. They're part of the soul of the earth. In creating your inner space here, what you're creating is the space that you want, that you are claiming as your space within the soul of the earth. And the earth will help you manifest this, by the way. There are manifestation techniques that, in working with love energy, you can more rapidly create the physical expression of those spaces, but you have to start inside. So find this inner space of yours, your sanctuary space. Feel its reality for a minute or two. Just breathe in there. And just try to get lost in it. Feel it emotionally. If you're an outdoor scene, feel the texture of the grass beneath you. Feel it and make it as real as possible. Put most of your consciousness into that space. And disassociate a little bit from your body. Try to feel the emotional reality of, wow, what a great space. Each one of you. Perfect, perfect space. There is a space like this for every one of us, by the way. It just may take us a while to find it. And it may change daily as far as its visuals. It's an energy. Once you're in there, then we're going to begin a communication skill that's going to become vital in the days and years to come. And it's vital already. Learning to communicate on higher dimensional frequencies. Because sometimes personalities with all their stuff and the things they worry about are very hard to communicate with. Sometimes we ourselves are very hard to communicate with. But there's a level of the self of everyone that is willing to establish harmony and to communicate openly. We can learn to find that space. But first you have to find it in yourself. So you find your sanctuary space. Now this is your little castle. You know, this is you're the king in this space. You decide what stays, what goes, what comes. You decide what temperature it'll be, what you'll look like in that space. And now, as we each have an image of what this space, or at least a feel of what this space may be, we're going to make a decision to let the other person that we're sitting across from visit. But it's going to be done very carefully, because we just created this safe little space that's really wonderful, and now that it's my space, it's mine, and nobody can tell me what to do in my space, so I don't really want to let anybody in here at all, because I like it this way. You'll find that in there. You'll find a resistance to wanting anybody in your space. But you'll also find that when you invite people into your space, into your sacred space, momentarily, you can resolve conflicts like you've never seen before. Now to do this, you find your space first, and you can make it look like it has a reception area. Even if you're not dealing with visualizations, pretend there's a reception area that's beautiful and relaxing and comfortable. And then anybody that wants to come near your space, or come near you, anybody that wants to get near your energy as you, has to come through intake. They have to meet you at the desk out front. So nobody can come through the door without you walking them through. Now I want you to again try this as a receiver and transmitter. Transmitter will be the person coming to visit the other person's space. And we're going to do this with visualization. And if you can't visualize clearly yet, just imagine that you are anyway. Draw from memory whatever images you could need. And you don't have to see it behind your eyes to have it work. This is a technique that you can solve many problems with when you learn how to use it well. And you don't need the other person sitting across from you to do it. Now, you're going to receive a guest in your space, receivers. If you're willing. If you're not, that's okay. If you're not willing, you would meet the person out at the front desk and just say to them, I'm not quite ready. And that's okay. And they'll say, that's okay, I understand. Because there's no wrongs here. Nobody, no right, no wrongs, no people having expectations about how another should behave. We're going to use visualizations, though. We're going to visualize you waiting to receive a guest in your space and see yourself as you are right now. Or, since you're in your space, you can be as you'd like yourself to be. Whatever your happiest form of you would be. You can change anything you want. You can pretend you're in a beautiful castle and you have, if you're female, have a long flowing gown on and you're getting ready to receive guests. Use the quality of imagination to make these energy shifts happen in you. So see yourself coming down your stairway of your castle or whatever is your space, out to the front reception area. And now, the transmitters. Imagine yourself, you're going on a journey, a very humble one. You're going with great reverence in your heart for another fellow expression of Creator. You can look like anything you want to, too. You can put on your best apparel or no apparel at all as far as images go. You can travel as simply an energy. Or you can travel with an image, which makes it easier at first. Transmitter, imagine yourself walking across a little bridge of light that goes between the heart chakras, that energy bridge you built before. Transmitter, walk across the heart chakra. At the same time, receiver, come out. The door would be right at the heart chakra. And try to feel. Don't say anything to each other yet. See if you can get an image at all on what's coming towards you, on the energy coming towards you from the transmitter. And simply meet there and try to feel each other and greet each other. It would be the same thing as a handshake in physical. And if you want to make it more real for yourself, imagine the two of you in physical bodies there doing a handshake. And receivers simply look at the other and say, I will trust you for this moment. Come into one of my inner rooms. It can be one of the outer ones. There's many, many rooms. It's a house of many mansions. Take him into the room you'd like to take him into, if it's in a house. Take him into the area of the woods, if it's in the woods by the stream. Or just take him into an energy bubble, if that's where you started, into a part of your space you don't mind them being in. In that space, you can both then ask for a little bit of a higher order of things to be brought in. For both of you have higher identities than even the level you're at right there. You have 15 dimensions of identity. So you can ask your Rishi selves, the part of you in dimensions 13, 14, and 15, what is the gift we give to each other in this interaction? For every single interaction between people on this planet is a gift. There is a lesson, there is a gift, and there is an energy exchange. And it is not by accident that it occurs. If you can begin to identify the gift you are in any situation, you and the other, you will begin to diffuse conflict. Because first you realize, conflict, that means we're giving each other gifts here and I'm not seeing the gift. Okay, let me look higher. When you get in the inner space, you're more detached from the outer space, so you don't get caught up in the emotional patterns involved with it. You can learn to train your mind to go into your sacred space, and you can invite remote somebody that you're having a conflict with. If you're having a conflict with Uncle George or Cousin Sue or the neighbor down the street whose name you don't even know, you can call to mind an image of them. Send out a transmission from your heart chakra, which sends it out into the astral level. And also imagine it being sent out from a point of your pillar, your personal pillar, that connects to the sun. You're transmitting on the highest levels to reach their higher identity, not just their astral identity. Transmit the desire to create harmony and healing. You can transmit it remote, and then you can do a visualization, even alone, to come in and bring it back in. Bring them to your space and say to them, I would like to resolve this now. You can begin interacting with the astral level of other people to resolve contracts. You can begin to work with them to find out what your contracts were on the soul level. Because if you're in conflict with each other here, believe it or not, there's a level of you both who kind of chuckle a little up there because you know you set it up. You know you designed this drama down here to teach yourselves, both of you mutually, to teach yourselves some things. And it can seem very heated and real here. So when we begin to learn how to go into each other's space with permission, and when we learn how to allow others to begin touching our sacred space, we are slowly building the ability to relate to others in a sacred manner. It is worth doing. It also gives you very, very powerful tools of transformation. Funny thing is, when people think about masters, people who are, like embodied masters and that come back here to teach things and stuff, do you know that most of the masters that are the biggest masters sit someplace away from everything, hardly ever deal with people, and they simply do everything from the astral or higher levels. They communicate with people there, they teach people from the astral level, they move around and they make things happen in their own life that they need to sustain themselves from the astral level. They do very, very little. With their physicalness, they don't need to. It's not silly mind games to learn to use the energies in this way. Learn to travel with your consciousness. Learn to make agreements with other people and those levels of their consciousness. If you have a conflict, call in the higher levels of the other person and say, please, I would like to resolve this with this person in a mutual win-win situation, and please, by the way, can you help me see the lesson in it so I don't have to create it again? If you take responsibility for the fact that no matter who's right or wrong, you're both creating the hologram, and there's a reason why both of you are doing it, take responsibility for the fact that somehow I'm creating this too to teach myself something, and hail the higher parts. This is going to be crucial if things get unstable with the planetary grids in the next 18 years. They may or they may not, depending on how the energy work goes that's here. But if you learn to communicate on the fourth and fifth dimensional frequencies by using visualization and energy sensing techniques like these, you will be able to go above the chaos and confusion that's out here. You will be able to locate other groups of people that can help each other. What I'd like to do, I'm going to take probably a 10-minute break, and they usually go to 15. That's why I say 10, so maybe by 20 everybody's back here. But what I want to do when we get back is I want to do an energy circle with you. Now, there's quite a few people here. We're going to just like mash the chairs down this way and sit back in the back. We're probably going to break down into a couple of smaller groups, but we're going to do a circle. I want you to know before you leave tonight how to do a circle, an energy circle with a group of people, and how to lead that circle, where you can say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to link our fields here. What I want to do tonight is I want us to give each other a little bit of a gift, a little bit of Psychic 101 of how to begin using your energy in a group, how to do some remote work, how to project group healing energy in a direction to create much more healing result. It works in prayer circles, but it also works for many other applications. You can find missing persons, you can help people in the hospital across the country heal. You can do lots of stuff, and you can also manifest stuff faster. So we're going to do a thing when we get back. We're going to have you think of one conflict you'd like to resolve. Think about this in our break. I'll ask you all to just know, and you don't have to tell me. Just keep it in your mind. One conflict you'd like to resolve. One thing in your body you'd like to heal. And one thing, physical object, that you'd like to manifest. A thing to manifest. And you're going to be mad at me in about 2 seconds, because I'm going to say, except money. You know why? The old joke goes that, the guy got really good at manifesting, and he kept saying, I want to manifest money, 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 money. He manifested billions and billions of dollars in paper, green cash, and you know what? The government didn't take that kind of money anymore. It's not the money you're looking for, it's the power behind it. If you want a house, focus on the house, not on the money to buy the house. Focus on the true energy signature of what you want. Money is a trap when it's looked at as if that is the power. You're projecting your power onto it. Your power is as a manifester. If you can learn to do this, you can find that money comes to you in ways you might never have thought. and you find yourself able to have the things progressively more and more that you want by manifesting. And they will appear to have come through the transaction of money. But money is just a symbol for your power and how you're relating to it. If you have too much money going out and not enough coming in, like most of us, you're giving out too much energy, you're too electrical, you're not magnetic enough. Comes right back to the biofield. So there's things. When we go on the break, just think of an object aside from money that you'd like, part of your body that you'd like to heal, and one conflict you'd like to resolve. And then when we come back, we're going to do the circle on the floor. If anybody has a real hard time sitting on the floor, I won't keep you there for a long time, but if anybody, like it's really hard for your body or something, you can pull the chair up, but I would prefer us to be on the floor sitting in a circle if we can. Okay, so we'll take a 10-minute break, but it'll probably end up 20. I want to teach you some basic things. One is to be able to link the group energy together, while still retaining your own seal on your fields, of course. Then creating a seal around the group, so nothing can mess with the group energies. So you're protecting individuals and the collective, because once you unite your energies together, you create another living, breathing organism in a higher dimensional form. The group becomes an entity that's composed of the individuation of each of its parts, but it becomes a sentient identity all on its own, and every group of people you're with qualifies as that. But a group that becomes an entity for the purposes of directed energy healing work are a very, very powerful force. If you can learn, at least tonight, simple techniques of getting a group of people together, sitting them down, telling them some basic things to do with their energy fields, and showing them how to focus that energy then into a center point. And I'm not going to have that be me either. It's better if it's an object. Okay, once you can focus it, take the group energy, get it harmonized together, and then bring it into a focal point, you have now at your disposal a pool a very strong energy, particularly if you have people with their field sealed to the 12th dimensional level, which means they're running at least some subharmonics of D12 frequency, which is one of the highest frequencies that can run through the human body. You bring down the pillar to get that high frequency in. You link it to a group, bringing in the group pillar, which is the Shaddai it's called, the first cause light, pillar of first cause light. That is extremely powerful force of energy. You're using the energy of the heavens and the higher parts of identity, of the collective, the Christos energy from dimensions 12, 11, and 10, and you're combining them with the earth grid energies, letting your system be the bioenergetic circuit that allows those things to run, and then you take that energy and focus it. And whatever you point it at, you're going to have one heck of scalar wave power behind it. All right, so if you want to work on things in your personal lives, it's worthwhile in your community to feel out and find some friends that are interested in energy work. And teach them about sealing their fields. Teach them how to protect themselves first. Because if they're working energy work and they're not sealing their fields, who knows what they picked up? You know, it's the energy workers that don't know how to seal their fields that are really picking up some nasty stuff, and they're transmitting it to others because they just don't realize it happened. Teach them how to seal their fields. Simple technique, the Maharic seal technique. Then, simply sit them down in a group of them. Say, let's play some energy work games. And what we're going to do tonight is a game, but it's a very serious game. I'd asked you before to pick 3 things that you would like to work on. And you don't have to write them down unless you need to for yourself. And I don't want to know them because it's not my business. It's between you and yourself and your higher parts. There's a conflict. Some conflict. It can be at work, at home, with children, with relatives, whatever, that you want to resolve. And make it specific. Not just general world healing. No, I'm tripping over words there. World healing or peace. Not just general. We want it specific here. Like my relationship with Uncle John needs help, Let's heal this conflict. Take them one at a time at first. Then later you get into big things to heal. Healing is harmonizing of vibrational patterns. If you're in conflict with somebody, you are in vibrational disharmonic with them. Your consciousness and theirs are not vibrating in a harmonious pattern. You can change that, particularly when you put group energy behind it. What we're going to do tonight, I want to walk you through so you can walk other groups through, those of you who are inclined to try to perpetuate this work. You will have a benefit that every time you work with a group, so if you decide you're going to assemble a group, it's worth it because you can't do group energy work with the extra kick without a group. So that's the motivation to get a group together to do it, is saying, well, we'll all benefit from this, including me. I know my energy work and I can do it myself, but I'm going to get a lot more power behind it if I'm working with a group. So it's worthwhile teaching some other people how to do this. You're helping them, they're helping you, that kind of thing. But we're going to take tonight simple conflict, a simple part of the body, whatever part you first want fixed. And again, don't just say the whole body. We all like our whole bodies fixed just like that, Just transmute them into, gorgeous angel figures while you're at it, if we're going to fix them all like that. It doesn't work that fast. But one body part, one conflict. And one thing, and make it an object, because objects are easier at first than, and like trying to say, I want to manifest money. You'll find yourself with money you can't use. You'll find yourself with money tied up in the States. You'll find yourself with money, but you're still looking at money as the object. You got the object, but can't use it. Because what you're really looking for is the power to do or to have something. Focus on what you want to have. If it's a house you want, focus on a house. Imagine that house. The perfect house for me, whatever that may be. And you can be specific even. A blue house with black shutters or whatever. Take those 3 things. And each person, we're going to unite the field of the group. And then we're going to transmit into a central object. And I have a crystal, I believe, for this purpose. I put my purse in there. Could you get that for me, please?
Does the person have to be alive?
No.
Somebody that's over your head.
Yeah. In fact, you can use, this is one of the applications of group work. This is really awesome. You can use it for many, many things. One thing is to locate missing persons or find information on where they might be. You can put together a group specifically for that. You can put together a group specifically for if there's anybody who has relatives or whatever that passed over, that those relatives might want to communicate, and it's in the best interest of all souls involved that that happens, the group energy can make your own signal strong enough where they can possibly reach you. You can do a literal group where you can make interdimensional contact once you know how to seal your fields. If I repeat myself with that, it's because it needs to be repeated. You need to understand before you go interdimensional, hyperdimensional, you have to seal your fields, or you'll have astral warfare going on and you won't even know what hit you. You know? Okay, so you can use it for a lot of things. Right now, we're going to do just simply basic focusing the group energy and picking those 3 areas to direct it through. We're going to direct it through the heart chakra, which takes it into the astral field, the 4th dimensional energy field. So we're going to transmit patterns to be set into the 4th dimensional field. I'm not finding the crystal I wanted, but it doesn't really matter. It can be a person, or it can be like whatever object you held. And yeah, does anybody have a crystal? Whatever's closest. Yeah, whatever's closest, because it's not that necessary. I have a bunch of them that I didn't bring with me because didn't know we were going to. A little bit first, and when it's like, breathe and then exhale and inhale and do this, I'll try not to have you hold your breath till you turn blue. We're going to draw energy up from the Earth's Maharic shield, from the Earth core. And once that shield is activated, which we did by activating our own pillar, brings temporarily the planetary 12th dimensional grid into active frequency transmission. We're going to put our consciousness down there, draw energy up in a silver cord, up in through our body. For those who have had Cathara healing, have taken that up into the Cathara grid in the body, but if you don't know where that is, that's okay. Just have it coming up the middle. Have it stretch out through the sun. There's a blue dot. Imagine a blue dot at the center of the sun, which is a symbolism that takes you way beyond the sun as we think of it here. It takes you into what's called the monadic imprint of your own identity, which is a level beyond ascended mastery of expansion into source that you will reach after you ascend through 15 dimensions and 3 levels of the energy matrix. You will go into the monadic, the full monadic imprint. It's like your cosmic family of consciousness. So you're going to link your energy to the earth core all the way up through you and all the way up through the blue speck at the center of the sun that symbolizes your cosmic family of consciousness. And some of us have the same one, some of us have a little bit different one, depending on where we originally came out of. But that blue dot in the center of the sun imagery will symbolize linking with that. So you're linking your own Maharic seal and your own Maharic shield into that energy. You're making a closed circuit of energy between the divine and grounding it in the earth. Once we do this, we have expanded frequency running through us. What we are going to do then is put our attention at the heart chakra, chakra 4, and we're going to focus some of that energy simply by breathing. We're going to inhale energy up from the earth core, expand it into the heart chakra about 3 times till you build a ball of energy there. And then you're going to find a focus object, which would be placed at the center. Now we have a pool of little crystals and things here. And at this point, I've already, whenever people put crystals and things there, you can put a shield on them, that anything that belongs to them that's in that crystal stays there, and it doesn't get put into the group field. So they have been maharically sealed too, and when you get them back, they'll be no different than when you had them before. We're not clearing them for you. It's not our business to interfere with whatever's in your crystals. But we're just blocking anything from coming out of them to affect it to anybody else. But the crystals are good because they refract energy in a way. They refract scalar waves in a way that amplifies them much more than other substances will. So once we get the energy coming up into the heart chakra, we're going to do a horizontal line coming out again, but it's going to come down for the people sitting. It's going to come down in a diagonal from the people here. It's just going to come out like spokes of a wheel. There's the center of the wheel. And out of each of your heart chakras, you're going to make a spoke of energy that comes out. You're not depleting your energy fields because you already have an open conduit between the earth and your monadic imprint, which is perpetual supply. So as long as you have that opened, you're not taking your own astral energy and draining yourself. Okay? You need to remember little things like that. When you do group work, remember that if you don't want to drain your fields, you need to connect to that blue dot in the center of the sun thing, because that's going to give you open conduit of energy, and you need to ground it in the earth. Little things like that are specific energy dynamics when they translate into what's happening with the energy fields. So they're worth noting. All right, you want open energy conduit so you don't drain your fields. You will use your breath. The breath is the push-pull. That's the thrust and the energy mover. So you will draw energy from both places, up and down, meet them in the center, and begin expanding them. We'll go through this in a minute, but I just want to explain it to you first. Once we expand them, and you can start to feel some energy building around the heart center inside, then inhale and push it out through that spoke, into the center. And it could just be a point on the floor that you all imagine the center of the circle, if you're for lack of an object or something, and you want to do it fast, if you're in a, rekeying a location. This is a tactic that's also used to recode planetary grids. All right, you can begin to recode planetary grids, house clearings, area clearings, all of this kind of thing. The first thing that needs to be done in any kind of clearing is resetting the 12th dimensional pattern. That's the Christic pattern. That's the frequency of the pre-matter substance that hasn't been distorted yet. So that's what you want to reset. And our Maharic shields are doing that. So just by having your Maharic seal open, you are running those 12 codes to begin the recoding process. So you're going to focus the energy into the center point. There's a lot of things you can do once you do that. You have a pool of energy. You can imagine it like a vessel, that center point, that's collecting energy from the group. And every time you breathe, every time every member of the group breathes, and you'll all breathe at your own rate. We're not going to worry about synchronizing the breaths of the group and the whole bit. You start with tantra, with couples, with that, and then work your way up. It takes a while to do. But simply breathe up and down at the same time, out, project. It doesn't have to be labored. Just every breath you take, imagine it being pulling from top and bottom and throwing out the heart chakra on the exhale. The group, simply by breathing, feeds energy into that center point. And there can come a time when whoever's running the group will simply say, okay, it's time to draw now. The group has charged that center point of energy. It's made a sphere of energy. Each group member, because it already has what we call key codes, codes of frequency. You helped create that sphere, so you have access to it. Something that wasn't part of that group, unless it was given the specific frequencies of each member of the group, would not be able to access that energy field. So you're creating a closed circuit of energy reserve to draw energy from for the group to use. You can use it, and it's good to do it physically first. You can later use that as a group remote, where you can draw that energy remote for all sorts of purposes. Once it's time to draw back, each one of you is simply asked to think of the three things that you want resolution on. And you can get very specific with this as you go on, and your own higher self will guide you on how to do that. But turning complicated things into symbols is one of the fastest ways to fix them with energy. You have your conflict, your body area, and the thing you want to manifest. In your mind, put those in a triangle with 3 points. Whatever priority is whatever. Whichever one's most important, put it at the top, the other two under it. Simply imagine it as a triangle and color it green, which is the 4th dimensional capstone color. You're going to access it on D4. Then you're going to simply, as you were before, transmitting energy in. Just take a clearing breath for a minute, and then begin to do the opposite. And send it back out on the exhale. Okay? It's not too hard to remember, and your own self really knows how to do this inside. It's just a matter of remembering. Because once upon a time, this was a natural way. The consciousness and the body just knew how to breathe for manifesting, how to breathe for healing, how to make certain energy run which ways. So if we simply just remember when we first draw the energy in and push it out to the center, and then this time we're giving a gift to the group, every member. And when it's time, we each get to draw back from that. And the energy, because it's run through the 12th dimensional pillars, is purified. So any of the stuff that anybody has is recoded, and it just ends up as pure dimensional frequency, where it doesn't have any personal signature on it anymore. So the energy that pools when you use the Maharic seal with this exercise, pools in that in the center, is just simply purified energy that can be used without worrying about harm of picking stuff up or anything like that. All right, so just hold in mind the symbol of those three problems because they are indigos and because science does not understand that this is a genetic issue. It's not just an orientation of consciousness, it's a genetic issue. They are mistreating them. They are putting them on Ritalin and not using the techniques that would actually help these children. So the indigo children are a neat phenomena that's just beginning to emerge into kind of common slang in the psychological modes. There are people in the psychology areas that are becoming aware that there are these special children that are emerging, that some of them are genius level, some of them are they just stand out. Some of them are very psychic, which is another part of their abilities you don't hear too much about right now in the public forum. Some of them are very telepathic. Some of them astral project by the time they're 4 and remember and come back and tell you. They have advanced psychic abilities. They have potential abilities that make things like the government very nervous, because some of them are literally pyrokinetic, which means if they get angry, they can blow up your house by accident. All right? These children are a phenomena that the more common ones that aren't blowing things up by accident and that kind of stuff, that are just exhibiting advanced characteristics in certain ways or ADD type symptoms, they're not considered a threat yet. But the ones that are considered a threat, they disappear very quickly. What most people have no idea is going on here. There are organizations set up in a number of countries already that if these children are identified by certain characteristics that you can sometimes see at birth, there's a couple reasons they're called indigos. One is some of them actually come in looking blue, and it's not because they have a heart problem. They come in with a blue tint to their skin that by about 3 months fades into a normal skin coloring. This is genetic again. Blue babies start to come out, they tend to disappear. They tend to get death certificates when they're not dead. Their mothers tend to think they died because there is government intervention going on with these children. It's not on the level of government that most people that work in the government know about. This is more of that beyond top security type stuff. There are things going on in this world that we are just not permitted to have information on. And the indigos, and understanding who they are, is key to understanding what's really going on in the big picture here. With the indigo children, the ones we need to pay attention to most right now are the ones that are bringing themselves into our attention. You're having children going around and shooting children in schoolyards these days. You're having children killing parents. You're having children, more and more and more children, being put on Ritalin because they don't cooperate in the school systems. And there's this whole system set up. Certain behaviors in the classroom, that gets sent to the counselor. The parent is advised to send the child to a psychologist. The psychologist is advised to use Ritalin and those kind of drugs to help the child adjust better. There's a railroading going on with the indigo children that is detrimental to them. But if it's detrimental to them, it's going to be detrimental to society eventually. Because when indigos, the energy in their system backs up, they can become violent. They can lose it completely. They're dealing with levels of energy and levels of consciousness coming into those little bodies that most of us never have to worry about, and psychology knows nothing about unless they understand the multidimensional structure of human identity, which unfortunately isn't the common model that's used in psychology right now. It's a model that indigos will need even to understand themselves. So in this presentation, we're going to get into primarily understanding who the indigo children are. Before we can help them, we need to realize how different they are from the average person, because they are quite different. And then we can start to explore what needs to be done in this society to accommodate these children, because whether or not we like it, they are here. And whether or not we want to admit they are what they are, they still are what they are. Once we can identify what that is, we can assist them with their problems. We can also discover if we might be one. Because indigos didn't just start coming in. They've been coming in little dribs and drabs for about 200 years. It's part of an evolutionary advancement program that we're going to talk about. Some people in this room, possibly many, are actually indigo genetic coded people. And you'll have certain experiences if you were. One of them is probably having a very difficult time being so sensitive as you grew up, because you have an awareness and a frequency in your consciousness that when you walk around in public schools and deal with the world the way it is out there, there's a part of you that just knows what is wrong with this picture? That you don't fit in. You feel there's a part of you that knows better than this. And even though you can't pull it in fully, this is what indigos are dealing with. They want to be a part of things, but things aren't supposed to be this way. They have a supposed to concept. They have something to compare it to because they have at least an intuitive memory of how things were and are in places where they work right, in systems that aren't structured like our psychological, our government systems, our socioeconomic systems. This is not a healthy world. This is a very sick world right now, and it's so sick that we've been living under mind control to believe it's okay, to believe this is a well world. It is not, and it's because of the ideas we use to build this world. We're taught to accept it because this is the way things are, and the way things are, the way the experts tell us, whoever they are, and we teach our children the same thing, and as long as we comply and follow the rules, we have a nice little life that ends in death. Death and pay taxes. That's the only thing you really have to worry about. When indigos come in, they know this is not the way the universe works. It's an intuitive sense. They can't put words on it. But there's a rebellion that happens in them. And if that rebellion isn't addressed and respected for the fact that they're right, it can backfire. And they can become a real force to contend with, particularly the pyrokinetics that they have locked up in government facilities because they don't know what to do with them. They don't know what to do with children who can accidentally start fires when you get them upset. And you know what? The children who have that problem don't know what to do with themselves. It's scary for them because they don't have their full awareness yet as who they are, why they came in. They just know they don't fit and they can do some things that other people can't, and what's wrong with me? The indigo's children tend to end up feeling there's something wrong with them because they haven't fully awakened yet to remember who they are, why they came. And society will tell them, you're different. There's something wrong with you. You're not normal. And they try to suppress their qualities to make them normal. And that doesn't work either. So I'm going to flip. We're going to explore a bit. Let's see. Okay, we can go past that one. We're going to explore the gene code, first of all. And to explore the gene code, I'm going to do a quick recap. Okay, you can just move through those kind of fast, until we get to charts and graphs and things. We're going to do a real quick recap on understanding relationships between dimensions, DNA, and consciousness. Because if you don't understand how these things fit together, you will not understand what an indigo is compared to a non-indigo. And you will not understand what indigos need to have done to help them. So do a real quick recap on, now, dimensions. When we talk about dimensions in the paradigm that most of you are from, have been in other workshops, so I don't have to go from kindergarten back up to here, which is good, saves time. Dimensions, they're interwoven layers of scalar waves. We have a definition for dimensions. Well, if you notice, with science, it's more of a word that's used to describe attributes of something, but it is not considered a something. It's not a noun. In our vocabulary, a dimension is a noun. It's describing a scalar field, a specific thing that has specific characteristics. So we have a model of reality that if you don't understand the interdimensional model, you will not understand who an indigo is and why it's important that they're here. So I want to show you where the dimensional structures and those paradigms fit with the whole indigo issue. Now, we have the dimensions or interwoven layers of scalar waves. This is all in there. It's like a refresher in the book, so anybody that didn't get pieces of it, you see where they all fit. The scalar waves are points of standing waves composed of literally units of consciousness that flash on and off. Part-a-chi units, part-a-k, part-a-chi, part-a-cum. There's a whole science behind this. So I'm not just winging it off the top of my head, talking about vague stuff. I know what I'm talking about when I talk about this dimensional structure, whether science wants to agree with me or not. And right now, I don't have time to prove it to them. If I had 25 years to walk them through step by step and learn their terminology to plug it into mine, they'd be blown away. I don't have time, because right now, we have issues happening that we need to learn how to use energy quickly. And it's only the people who are beyond the point, well, prove it to me, who sense that, okay, teach me something. I'll learn and I'll work on the proof later. They're the people I speak to, because they're the ones that will make a difference here. While the scientists are still scratching their heads trying to figure out why there's solar changes happening that they haven't predicted and don't understand why they're happening. There are things happening here the scientists don't know yet. They don't know why. They're observing symptoms. They're observing indigos. They're observing solar changes. They don't know what is happening. Somebody needs to get a group of people together that has some idea of what's happening so we can make it work in a way that's healthy for our race. All right, when we get into dimensions and scalar waves, I like this because it helps bring it all together. cyclic repeating patterns of flash line sequences form frequency bands. A dimension is one full frequency band. Now, frequency band is a term we've heard of here. Okay? Science talks about frequencies. If we can understand it one step deeper than that a frequency band is a repeating pattern of what's called flash line sequences. Flashing on and off of stationary, fixed, standing wave patterns, scalar waves. This is where frequency comes from. It's not just an observable symptom of something unidentifiable called the universe and its energy mechanics. Frequency is repeating patterns of flash line sequences that happen because of units of consciousness, part of K, part of Chi, part of Cum, firing at certain specific rhythms on and off to each other. They are internal fission and fusion generators. In fusion, particle, antiparticle come together, creates an immediate reciprocal fission or replication. So it's a continual, perpetual motion universe we live in. And science hasn't been able to figure out how to identify this yet. All comes down to scalar wave technology and understanding what scalar waves are, how they're literally forms of consciousness, and how everything is composed of consciousness. So it's a dimensional model that, give them about 50 years, and the right people, probably indigos, coming in to take the science jargon now and make it grow to where it can fit these concepts. These are our ways to take words like, muons, electrons, photons, and plug it into this model. They fit. But we're starting at the deep level, the morphogenetic level, the template of light, sound, and consciousness that everything else is built on. We'll work up to where all those other pieces that they've identified fit. So it's a model that, it is the model that's used in the future actively. We are being visited by beings from the future, whether we want to admit it or not, because they understand this model. Why can't we visit them? Because we don't understand this model. If science could open to that concept, they would start to realize, wow, we could learn something here, So I don't have time to argue with people who are saying, yeah, but, prove this, prove that. So here's the information. Take what you know. You go prove it to yourself. And I can teach you some abilities to open to your higher consciousness, so maybe it can guide you, but they don't want to know about this. So it's like people like this that are willing to say, okay, I'll learn something new. I'm open to learning. I would not doubt that a good percentage of you are indigos, because this is a model that resonates with indigos if they haven't been thoroughly programmed by peer pressure through the school systems. They will feel a sense of, that makes more sense than what I'm being taught. They'll respond to these types of models because they resonate with where they come from, with future time. Okay? Let's see. Morphogenetic structure. This all comes down to what we're doing with dimensions, scalar waves, frequency bands. We're talking about the templates that matter and consciousness are built upon, that give us the experience of space-time, matter, and physicality. That's what it comes down to, the core of what manifestation takes place on. If we can understand there is a model that shows us how these pieces fit together, we can understand a whole bunch of other things. But if you don't understand multidimensionality, you won't understand any of it. You won't understand indigos, you won't understand yourself, you won't understand what religion was trying to teach you all along, you won't understand what science is trying to find. So it's worth absorbing the model, and it'll grow. This model is just the bare bones, the beginning. There's a lot of technical stuff that I don't even want to deal with. Fortunately, it's not my contract, so I don't have to. I'm here to bring in the functional framework and to bring in the information on what needs to be done fast to make positive changes here. So I'm not going to haggle on details and spend a million years teaching you mathematics from the future and that kind of stuff. We'll get there. Somebody else will do that job. Thank goodness. You could flip that. Okay, now, this is the classic structure. And finally, I've got it all where it's nice in typeset form. Other people have seen this 15-dimensional model in some of the chart packs and things. And we went from having literally rough hand-drawn ones to finally I figured out how to do graphics on the computer, so now I could pull them in decent form. This is a basic model of 15-dimensional structure. This is not how the dimensions relate to each other. They really take place all in the same space. All right? But this is opening it up to show you the basic structure that you're working with. So it is a model, it's kind of like doing a painting as opposed to taking a photograph. All right? You're not going to go out there in the universe with a spaceship and somewhere find something like this hanging in the air that, there is your structure of how the universe is built. No, it's an intrinsic relationship that's trying to be shown here with these diagrams. We have basically our 5 harmonic universes. When I see HU there, Hue, we're talking harmonic universe for those who don't know that. Harmonic universe 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They're each 3-dimensional systems. This is where we get 3-dimensionality from. It's the relationship between angular rotation of particle spin
with a 90-degree shift between each dimensional band that allows consciousness to perceive and project outward the illusion of three-dimensional reality. It is a holographic projection. And for certain reasons that have to do with our gene code, we perceive it as very physical and solid, much more so than it was ever intended to be perceived. And that is because of distortions in our gene code, which tells us that our gene code has something to do with manufacturing the hologram itself, which it does. Our gene code is much more than these little chemicals that science is identifying have something to do with structuring the whole imprint of the body. They're seeing only the surface of DNA. The gene code is much more than observable DNA. In these texts, I talk about DNA, and I talk in ways that scientists kind of look at me and go, what in God's name is she talking about? They think of DNA meaning this, and it's a specific substance. I know DNA as being something that goes much deeper than that. I use their term DNA because they are using DNA, this substance they have identified, as what they're calling the core blueprint of the human gene code. So I'm using their definition. We'll deal with the core blueprint of the human gene code, and I'll use your term DNA, but it means much more than you're using it right now. When I talk about DNA, I'm going down into the morphogenetic structure again, part of K, part of Chi, part of Cum, and their geometrical relationships to each other within the three-dimensional scale. So again, when I'm using science versus this paradigm, they do meet, but most scientific people don't see that meeting point yet, and they'll try to haggle on, well, DNA means this. You can't use it that way. I can use it any way I want to. First of all, if I want to use that word to show you what you're calling a core blueprint, you're calling that the core blueprint of the human genome. Fine. Let's take that concept, and let's take it deeper. You want to know how the core blueprint of the human genome functions? Here it is. It's a 12-strand pattern. And then we lose them because they can't seize 12 strands. They've only identified a little tiny, tiny bit of what DNA, or the core template, really is. At some point, we'll make a distinction between the whole core template and the manifest DNA, because there is a distinction. What they're calling DNA is really a chemical translation of portions of that core template. So the template is something even deeper. It's a Cathara level. That's what we deal with in Cathara healing, the templates. But for now, when I talk about DNA, I'm referring to the expanded version of that definition as being the core template of the genome. It's important to understand how DNA functions. If, first of all, you want to be able to control your own consciousness. If you don't realize your consciousness and your DNA are intimately intertwined, if you don't realize that if your DNA is not activating properly, you can't bring in higher levels of consciousness because it serves as a block to those frequencies coming in. If you realize DNA is a grouping of scalar points that have certain relationships to each other that need to be active in a certain way to bring other scalar waves that carry your consciousness in, you start to understand the relationship between your body, your mind, and your spirit. And this is a relationship the science to this day refuses to acknowledge because they can't figure out how to prove it. They're walking around in bodies. You'd think they'd be able to at least sense it, but they get so indoctrinated into what they're considering high science here because they don't have anything higher to compare it to, that they get caught up in the mumbo-jumbo jargon to the point where they have no idea how their consciousness relates to their mind or their spirit or their body. Spirit is something that doesn't even exist to most people in the scientific paradigms. And our societies are being led by these people. They're the experts now that tell us how everything works. They're the ones that decide the systems that will be built on how those things work. They don't know how things work. We're having systems built and structures of society set up to serve something that they don't know anything about. And they're putting themselves up as the experts. Science has become our god in this culture. And there's a backlash movement where there's a lot of people are saying, forget it, I don't want science at all. And they go totally into religion because they have nowhere else to go with it. This is a medium point where you don't have to buy into heavy religious dogma from twisted, distorted documents that were left. There were good documents once upon a time, but boy, have they been messed with. And a lot of it just by men who were trying to control masses of populations. There's an option. It's learning the structure. It's learning the fact that there was never a separation between consciousness, body, and mind. There always and always will be a unit. But you can convince yourself in your hologram that this isn't true by believing a certain set of ideas that tell you these are separate entities and not intimately intertwined. Science will not show you how your spirit plugs into your mind, plugs into your body, because they don't know. They probably would try to show you, or they'd at least try to bottle it and market it and make a profit, if they knew how. Okay? That's what a lot of where science goes now is about. That's a lot of where the paradigms that we're being taught as how things work and what the solutions to problems are, like Ritalin for indigo children. This has more to do with corporations that manufacture that drug and kickbacks going into programs, nonprofit programs that need funding given to them by people who manufacture Ritalin. This was just found. I saw it was funny. I was getting ready to do the indigo workshop. 3 o'clock in the morning one morning, the show comes on. I don't even know who broadcast it. It was on like one of those public service channels. Somebody did a documentary recently tracing the corporation that makes Ritalin and its relationship to the ADD Foundation. ADD Foundation is supposed to be a group of people that are helping children, parents of children, with children who have been diagnosed with attention deficit disorder and attention deficit hyperactive disorder. All right. One of the things that they endorse is the use of Ritalin as part of their protocol. It's a good thing. It will help the children. They have put together videos of parents. I had this child, and I took him in, and they had, identified him as this. Since the child's been on Ritalin, it's been a wonder. He's just been, so much better since he's had treatment. Like now he's controllable. This kind of thing. What the people in this documentary did, and I didn't have time to write all the things down. This was one of those, Spirit kind of sent it my way just so I'd be able to talk a little bit about it. It wasn't something to focus on in the workshop. But what they had discovered, and it was like, when I heard this, I was like, oh my God, they're really doing it. Talk about one world order nonsense happening here. What the people who made the documentary, and I can try to trace it, at least I think I have written down what the TV station was. What they had found was, first of all, and it's not mentioned in any of the literature, the organization, which I believe is national, maybe international at this point, that I think it's the ADD Foundation or whatever. This is the organization that if you have a child having problems, teacher has a problem with your child goes to a psychologist refers you to a support group, okay? You go to a support group for parents who are trying to deal with children that have been diagnosed with ADD. You get to that support group and they give you literature and they pat you on the back and say, oh, we'll help you. And all these poor parents are just trying to find a way to deal with this child that they don't know what is wrong. What they don't say in their literature, and what they had a very hard time tracking it down to the management levels of who is running this stuff anyway, is the fact that about 80% of their funding, nonprofit organizations, support groups, supposedly grassroots run by parents, 80% of their funding is from the corporation that manufactures Ritalin. That's not mentioned anywhere. Talk about possibly bias. All right. When the people who made this movie confronted the individuals that they traced as management, they did one of those song and dances, like kind of dodge the question, look around. Well, we didn't feel it was necessary to put that on there. Like, don't you think that's a little bit deceptive? Don't you think the parents that are being referred to your group as a support group with no bias should have the right to know that 80% of your funding that you depend on to function is coming from the corporation that manufactures the drug that you just so happen to be saying is wonderful to treat this, when in truth, the treatment level, it hasn't been being done long enough to know any long-term effects. The treatment level is not as high as they tell you it is. These children are being railroaded, and so are the parents. And it's actually criminal, the way it's being done, because it's all very quietly done misinformation or not putting that information in the right places. They went to the corporation that manufactures it. I forget what the name is of it, but there's a corporation that manufactures Ritalin. They wouldn't comment. Other than the issue, like one of those statements that you don't talk to anybody, they just send you a little form letter that acknowledge that they do support numerous different types of nonprofit organizations for various reasons. Yeah, so you get them to buy, to endorse using your drugs to treat the problems. So the whole ADD movement is being amplified by this. And if this wasn't bad enough, what was even worse, this is where I got really scared. Like, this is beginning to sound like one of those sci-fi novels where, this one world order starts to take over from underneath and you don't even see it coming. There's a video that's put out by the government, by the educational systems in the government that are studying these things, that has this bunch of parents, that just parents that happen to have indigo children, saying how this treatment has worked, and they're endorsing the drug therapy as something that appears to be very good for these children. Okay, they're not saying it's the only treatment, but they're saying it appears to be the way to go with these children, of course referring you to support groups, right? What they don't tell you about the video is that I think there were 3 primary parents featured. Each one of them had, at one point in the last 10 years, been one of the heads of the national offices of the ADD Foundation that's taking the funding from the place that, manufactures Ritalin. Yes, that's the one. Yeah, I had it all written down someplace, but it wasn't the focus of it. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. What is happening to these children, and what is happening to parents of these children? This is frightening stuff. Now we have government videos. And of course, everybody turns to the government when you don't know what to do and you're just a citizen and you want help. You go to doctors, you go to school systems, you go to government education programs because they're available. And you're being taught that this is the way this is to be handled. The reason you're being taught that comes down to bucks. It's not because they care about your kid. And it's not because they care about you. It's because they care about padding their own pockets. And they also care about making sure the pharmaceutical industry gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Drug therapy is what they would like to see as the thing of forever. It's profitable. It keeps people controllable. It gives medicine, science, and government, as a group that might want to hold hands someday, the ability to literally put you under mind control because you agree to let them. This is a problem that's happening here, and the indigos are bringing it to the surface. It's starting to, when more and more of these children come out, and more children are being identified as ADD and hyperactive and all of this, there needs to be a point where some of these parents say, and some of them are already saying it, there's something, I just don't feel right about this drug therapy. I just don't feel right about this. I don't care what the experts tell me. And okay, my kid's out of control. I'm trying to figure out what to do with that, but I don't think that's the answer. On this show, interestingly, one more thing I want to say about this show is they had, I believe, 12 children who were on Ritalin, or there was another similar. What was it? No, it wasn't Prozac. Cyclert? I believe it's Cyclert. Cylert. That's it, yeah. They interviewed the children. They were from ages maybe 7 through 18. And they asked them, out of every one of those children, they said, I feel like I'm in space. I said, I don't even feel real anymore. I've told my mother I want to be off it. But she says, no. It's like, yeah, it's like, I can think a little more clearly in certain ways. I can focus better. But I'm not even me. This is how these children were answering these things. The children are having their parents say, oh, we love you, we want to fix you. The kids are saying, I feel like I'm in outer space on this stuff. It's doing something bad to me. Please take me off it. And the parents are saying, no, I can't do that. I'm trying to help you. So it's a catch-22 all the way around. There has to be another solution. But the solution is going to come. Okay, I'll take questions later, okay? The solutions are going to come by understanding, first of all, what in the world we're dealing with indigo children. Because the experts are not going to figure this one out. If you don't understand multidimensional structure, you're not going to understand one iota what an indigo represents. And you're also not going to understand the level of respect they deserve. Because they deserve a level of respect. They deserve to be accommodated here. They're not here by accident. They're here by design, and by plan, and by invitation. And they need your help to remember, once they come into the gene code, just like all of us, bang, the shades go down. And all of a sudden you're here, you don't remember who you were before you came here, and you begin a finite life experience. They need to awaken if they're going to finish what they came here to do. It's up to us, the parents of indigos, the society around indigos, even if you're not parents. We need to be aware that they're coming, aware that they're here, aware that they need our help, to give them the paradigm that they can use to awaken themselves, so they can finish doing what they came to do to help us. Because they came here to help us, but not just us. They came here as part of a very large plan that's going on. And this is something that it's probably going to make a lot of psychologists dealing with indigos not want to hear it at all, because it's going to get into another area that there's many people who haven't made these connections yet. We have some interesting groups of people emerging in our society. We have indigos over here with physical evidence of all these kids being stuck on ADD because they have all these weird characteristics that are associated with uncontrollable behavior. They're indigos. We also have this other really weird group of people over here, the fringes of society, called your alien abductees, okay? People reporting alien abduction phenomena and all of these things. They seem to be like worlds apart, having nothing to do with each other. Well, the big awakening here is going to be realizing both phenomena are real and both are totally interconnected. This is what we're going to explore as we get into, after we find out who they are, we're going to see where that fits and why especially people in psychology need to start to understand, to wake up, to get out of the mind control cultural programming and to realize what's going on around them if they really want to help people. Because again, you have another group of people, contactees, abductees, and a lot of people that are even just channeling are stuffed into this category of, weirdos, okay, fringe of society stuff. You take them to a shrink, okay? And I call shrinks in psychology something different. A shrink is one from the old school because they shrink your mind. They will put you on drugs and they will put you in institutions if you astral project. If you talk about astral projecting, they'll put you on lithium or something else to make it go away. Okay? They are helping you to shrink yourself. So when I refer to shrinks, I'm not being derogatory toward all people in psychology or psychiatry. True psychologists and psychiatrists are helping you to understand and develop your mind, your psyche. Shrinks are helping you to stunt it. And right now, the majority of the people in the psychology movement happen to be shrinks. Why? Because they've been taught to shrink their own minds and perceptions. They've been taught a model. They limit themselves, and they will limit you because they don't know how to do anything different. It needs to be acknowledged, if we want to become functional in dealing with the reality around us, that these fringe groups of people are trying to tell us something. Something is going on here. The abductees are not having sleep apnea problems. They are not having hallucinations. They did not get sexually abused in childhood and transposed it into latent repressed memories of having aliens mess with them. 99% of the cases are not having these problems. You may find one or two that picked up the theme from the TV and said, okay, let's transfer it into that. But most people claiming contact with visitors of some sort are having contact with visitors. And this has everything to do with the indigo children. I don't know if mainstream psychology is anywhere near ready to understand who indigos are, because they're not just human children with special characteristics. Indigo children are hybrid children. We are in the middle of a race expansion program. There are, in these universes up here, all right, we're in these three-dimensional systems down here. Let me get over, I'll have to switch sides so both sides can see. Down here in harmonic 1 is where our reality fields take place. We look up in the stars, our galaxies, they're all happening in this space down here, dimensions 1, 2, and 3. We have a 15-dimensional structure that's called the time matrix, the morphogenetic structure of universal construct that we all exist within. Up here you have harmonic 2, dimensions 4, 5, and 6. They are at higher frequency. There's a different angular rotation of particle spin. They're actually in the same place as here, but it's like shifting them a little different. So we don't see them and they don't see us. They're a level of expansion compared to here. These systems up here, they have their version of Earth, of the Pleiades, of the Sirius systems. Those things are reflected up there too, because what you have here is a progression of matter density. When anything comes into manifestation, it comes in through the 8th dimension, begins with the highest frequencies in harmonic 5 as waveform, moves down into a little slower waveform, which becomes pre-matter, liquid light. From there, it breaks itself down into a smaller waveform that becomes etheric matter, which is silica-based matter rather than carbon-based. Breaks down from there into a semi-etheric matter of harmonic 2, which is still physical. These are still considered physical matter systems. They have the spatial qualities. You walk around in a body. You have things to step on. It's not all, just floating around as consciousness. And then we have us down here in gross matter systems. This is a progression of matter density. That is the way you become manifest. So the fact that we're down here and have bodies running around down here implies that there's other manifestations all the way up this scale. Because consciousness comes in and breaks itself progressively down. We're even related to those things that live in the higher dimensional fields. All of us start as a matrix of consciousness up in the higher fields and break down into smaller families, smaller groups, until finally we become individuated individuals. We are related to the interstellar families, and they are very, very real. We're going to show the lineage today as we move through this program. This is the first time in about, I think they said since about 200,000 years ago, that the whole basic lineage was shown as far as where did we come from. Because if we want to understand how indigos differ from us, We need to understand what us means. And most of us have no clue because we've been fed false history by a false science that doesn't know anything about the majority of reality. We're down here. All of these systems are more advanced than we are. They have beings in matter bodies running around with incredible intelligence compared to what we have here. The science here is preschool compared to their science. So when we begin to understand that there's these levels of other reality that have always been there, it's just us who went to sleep and forgot they existed and forgot we came through them to get here. If we begin to understand that, when we talk about visitors coming from other worlds, and we look at those poor people out there having their little UFO groups and little meetings because they have to talk to somebody because it's scary when it starts happening to you. You think you're losing your mind. Why? Because society told you that if you see aliens, you're losing your mind. So the people who are having contact are being told they're nuts. They're terrified because they don't know what to make of contact. There's no rule book for this, you know. They can't turn to psychology, so they turn to each other. This group of people is at least aware something is happening here. You go into mainstream, you go into schools and colleges and psychology departments, and you're going to get a runaround. You're going to get told, oh, it's sleep apnea this week. Next week, they'll have a better excuse. They are looking for reasons why not to acknowledge it. Because to acknowledge it would totally shatter their paradigms. All right? Same thing with multidimensional structure, multidimensional identity. If science, right now, psychology acknowledges a soul, what is that concept going to do to their whole interpretation framework? It's going to change it. They can no longer say, well, gee, if somebody is experiencing flying above their body at night in bed, they can no longer say that this is a hallucination problem. They can no longer throw a diagnosis on it as an ism. They have to acknowledge it as a normal function of consciousness. But they don't understand it, so they can't acknowledge it. We need to make these changes. We need to get these paradigms of understanding out there in coherent ways that more people can be touched if we want to retain any kind of control over this society. Because it's getting out of our control rapidly. It's going to get worse in the next 12 years or so. Because the ones that are coming from up here to visit us down here aren't going to stop. They're going to continue to interact with individuals. There's a whole story on agendas that are happening here that involve visitors, including history. I have a history book that starts 560 million years ago, and it's just being touched on in Amente. Amente, Voyager's Secrets of Amente, book 2 of the Voyager series, that is just the little bare bones to show, all right, this is basic where things started. There is a huge amount of history that has directly to do with what's happening today. If we don't understand that all along we have been visited from races up here, we have been hybridized from our original imprint, we have been manipulated, information has been twisted and some of it taken away from us so we didn't understand who we were by those visitors who now we are being told that aren't real. If we don't understand this stuff, we're going to be able to be easy to manipulate like we have been for the last 200,000 years. This is our chance as a race, and the indigos are bringing it to the surface. They're putting behavior in our face that we can't deal with through our paradigms, and they will do more of this. Okay? They're serving a role, even the worst of them, the ones that really lose it and go around shooting up classmates and things. They're out of control. They're showing us that something's out of control here, and we don't have a framework. So we start looking for higher frameworks. This framework will do it. If we understand the 5 harmonics of matter density and realize the existence of this one right here we're walking around and implies the existence of the other 4 above, which is in terms of frequency rather than position in the sky, okay, we will begin to reinterpret everything from our psychological paradigms, our religious paradigms, and our historical paradigms. There is evidence of contact all over the place. We just came back from Egypt, some of us. Look on the walls of these things. They have beings with elongated heads. They're cloister races. That's what the original human line looked like. They had elongated head structure, and they were very tall, many of them. They have Ramas, which are a race from a place called Inner Earth. And no, you don't find it by digging. But yes, it exists. Okay? There are things here that there's evidence if they look for it. They even found skulls of small beings with elongated heads, which are a hybrid form of actually Palladian cloister human, and they're calling them encephalitic children. They're saying they must have had encephalitis and their brains grew and their heads exploded, and that's why they got these big heads. Right? Give me a break already. Their big argument in science is, there's no evidence for contact. Oh, really? Just look at history with your eyes open. It's been there all along. There's heads on Easter Island. Like, what did they do? Grow there? You know, they didn't grow there. Somebody put them there. How might they have dragged them up to those positions? Look at the Great Pyramids themselves. They are aligned with north, south, east, and west in a way so accurate that it's incomprehensible with the knowledge supposedly held by the people of the times. The evidence is here, and there's more and more people bringing it out. Even in the Bible, there are references that can very easily be interpreted as contact from races from higher. What they don't tell you in the Bible is there's 12 books that were taken out. The Bible we're using now, I'm not anti-Christian at all. In fact, I had an incarnation where my half-brother was Jesuit 12, which was the one who brought the true ascension teachings in here. And he was in here at the same time as the other Jeshua, so it was a little confusing. They're not telling you in the Bible anymore about the books of Enoch. The books of Enoch taught about the Nephilim, who came down from the skies and interbred with humans. And they created a race of giants. And they created painful births for females. And they were banned from this planet. This stuff was written down in the ancient texts. The books of Enoch were taken out, along with other books from others who knew. And a lot of that happened through the Inquisitions. There's still information buried in France that was left behind to one day be found that verifies some of this stuff. The history we've been taught is nonsense. The fact that we came out of apes, we didn't. The fact that we grew out of fish, we didn't do that either. Well, closer to that, but if we did, it wasn't here. We started up here as far as our physical manifestation goes. Harmonic 4, etheric matter density. You don't get into physical matter density without starting up here and working your way down. Our lineage goes all the way up the 15-dimensional scale. And the 15-dimensional scale relates directly to DNA, which means there is a race line that goes up through the dimensions that we emerged out of. You're not going to find the origins of humans on this planet. You're not going to find the origins of indigos on this planet. Okay? They're partly from here, but they're partly not. And we're going to get into explaining the genetic codes a little bit, how DNA works in relation to the dimensional scale, so we have a refresher on how that relationship works, because we've done it in other workshops before. Then we're going to start to show the differences between what the standard human DNA is, what the indigo DNA is, and what the DNA is of some of these fictitious characters we hear about in the Bible. Even the Bible mentions Nephilim. They're a race of ETs, okay? Call them fallen angels, call them what you want. But they are, most of them from harmonic 2, some of them are still in harmonic 1, which means they're physical just like we are, that interacted with our race at various times. And we need to acknowledge the fact that these guys are real. If we want to understand anything about indigos, they're not Nephilim, not exactly. They're more than that. That's good, because if they were just Nephilim, we'd be in trouble. We'd want to find another planet to live on, because the last time we had Nephilim here, they took over the human race, and they were literally, the higher ones from up in higher harmonics came in and said, we'll blow up the planet if we have to, but you're not going to do this anymore, because they dominated this race, and they were going to totally wipe out its evolutionary blueprint. They were not our ancient friends, let's say. The Nephilim were a race that was a hybrid race between humans that were here, cloister humans, which have higher DNA than root race humans. We'll talk about that too in a minute. They're hybrid between the humans that were here and a visiting race called the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki are a Sirian strain. They are from the Sirius star system in harmonic 2 and harmonic 3. The Anunnaki, just like the human lineage, is actually very, very ancient, but the Anunnaki are older than we are. And they went into a stellar heritage that went up into these harmonics. The Anunnaki, on occasion, interacted here. And when they did, they usually caused a lot of trouble. They messed with the gene code. They interbred. They did genetic manipulation. They have sciences that are so far beyond what our science knows. They don't even need to use a knife to get into your body to fix something. They know how to move the energy and put their hands in. There's a few healers on the planet that are getting good at that too. So these are people, beings, with technology far advanced. But unfortunately with the Nephilim, there's certain parts of their DNA missing that blocks out certain parts of their cognition. And it's the cognition level that goes with compassion and the frequencies that allow you to plug in without even realizing the harm that they're doing, of creating real messes and having no feeling, no remorse, because they don't have the ability to identify yet They're stuck in their evolution. They're brilliant as far as intellect received by the one consciousness. One of those experiences is individuation. We're really all one being, but we've gotten into that in other workshops. All right, so when we're dealing with these outer levels of the energy matrix, when we get into identity structure, we have a part of ourselves that exists in each one of these systems that we'll talk about later. These correspond to what's called ultra-terrestrial consciousness. We have extraterrestrial consciousness coming from up in harmonic 2 and harmonic 3. We get into meta-terrestrial consciousness and Christed consciousness, where they get into the pre-matter liquid light, where the imprints aren't as messed up as they have become down here. The original patterns of cognition, the original patterns of scalar waves that get you out of density and back into your higher levels of cognition are here. So going in through here, these are considered meta-terrestrials. When you get out into here, in the expanded levels, it's called ultra-terrestrial consciousness. And that represents consciousness corresponding to what is called ascended mastery. When you hear about ascended masters, my first question is when somebody says, I'm an ascended master, from which level? And they kind of look at you, well, ascended master is an ascended master. It is not. Some of them, right now, that are interacting with us through channeling are actually from up here, harmonic 2, okay? They have maybe fifth dimensional consciousness. And they're saying, we're the ascended masters, follow us. They'll get you to here. Most of them don't even remember the rest of this yet. You're not ascended master until you go up through the whole evolutionary cycle, pull your consciousness back together, 15 dimensions, then pull it back together into 3 levels of the energy matrix. That is an ascended master. Okay? So we have a lot of stuff coming out in the channeling movement that all sorts of things are claiming to be ascended masters. Well, just because you ascended to one harmonic, yeah, all right, you ascended technically speaking, but being ascended and being a master are 2 different things. When we are dealing with indigos, we need to understand this distinction because they're not just coming from here. And when we get into the gene code, you'll start to understand who they are and why it's so very important that we acknowledge this and we begin to create a movement. And I don't mean just a little movement in New York City. This information has to get out, even if it's not in the overground where you'll have the system trying to stomp on you and shut you up every time you open your mouth. There needs to be created a movement of awareness, especially the spiritual people who understand at least some kind of spiritual stuff, that there are spiritual dimensions. These beings need protection and they need assistance. And they are very, very important to have here. They're important to our survival. And they also deserve our respect. Okay, can we switch to the next one? Okay, I'm just going to show you quick the levels of matter density I was talking about. You have in dimensions 1, 2, 3, carbon-based biology, physical matter density. Harmonic universe 2, dimensions 4, 5, 6, carbon silica-based biology, physical matter 2. This begins the transmutation process. When we talk about ascension, which I talk about in a lot of my workshops, what I'm talking about is DNA doing something different than it's doing right now that allows for the process of the carbon-based biology to progressively transmute into carbon silica, then progressively into silica-based biology. Meanwhile, you're going from physical matter density to semi-etheric to etheric and progressing your way up and out. All right? It is a scientific process. This was called the ancient Merkaba sciences. These were sciences that were understood by the elder races and used. A lot of the reason there's no evidence left, they left. I mean, seriously, there were cloister races here that did this on a regular basis. They came down, had experiences here, sometimes seeded some root races, and then they just transmuted themselves out of here. You don't have to leave a body behind. There were ancient civilizations that knew this. There's other reasons why there's evidence missing too, but the evidence is also there if we reinterpret. So these are the levels, anyway, of the matter density levels that go with the 15-dimensional structure. When I was talking before about units of consciousness forming standing scalar waves, I was talking about these things, part of K, part of Chi, and part of Chem. Part of Chi would represent an antimatter unit of consciousness, a fixed point within a scalar grid, a fixed standing wave pattern. When it flashes on, you would see it flash on like a light bulb. It breaks itself down into a particum, which is the base unit of consciousness that will form particles, and at the same time it forms particuli, K, which are the base units that form antiparticles. This is where you get your particle and antiparticle systems. It's simply the constant flashing on and off. It's called particuli phasing, where they come together in fusion, disappear, demanifest, and turn into antimatter units, and then flash back on, becoming that standing wave. and go into particle and antiparticle base, and everything evolves on that. That's the base structure, the template that all the particle science has identified are building on. So particle-phasing is the way the world goes round, the way the universe goes round. And when science starts to understand this, they'll start to get functional when it comes to interdimensional scales and those kind of things. Okay, I think we can go on from there. Yeah, thank you. Do we need anything here? All right, DNA. Okay, I talked about how science doesn't know really what they're dealing with DNA. This is a point I want to bring together because we talked about 5 letters in one part of one workshop, and then we talked about other aspects of DNA in another. This will bring it together a little bit of how these two things work together. Okay, the scalar wave programs, and we learn up here that DNA are actually the observable portions, chemical translations, of scalar wave programs that exist in the morphogenetic field. Okay? Scalar wave programs that are held within the DNA imprint, these create the diversity of form. Different programs of scalar waves create different DNA in the manifest levels, which creates different biologies. Okay? These programs, though, the scalar wave part of the DNA,